Breaking news, Viking Nation. The first revelation is about to detonate inside Minneapolis, and it's sending shockwaves through every NFL front office from coast to coast. 5 earth-shattering updates just dropped that prove this purple and gold franchise is operating on a completely different level than anyone imagined. And trust me when I say the rest of the NFC is about to realize they're dealing with a team that refuses to be stopped by anything. Injuries, departures, or doubters. A former Vikings lineman just found refuge with a desperate franchise. A rookie kicker just shattered records that stood for years while making NFL history. A franchise quarterback suffered a devastating setback that should have crushed this team's dreams. But instead, a defensive superstar emerged to rewrite the record books in ways that have opposing coaches questioning everything they thought they knew about this Minnesota squad. Each of these revelations proves that when adversity strikes, the Vikings don't just survive, they evolve into something more dangerous than anyone expected. The storm starts right now with a departure story that reveals exactly why this team's depth and decision-making is light years ahead of their division rivals. But hold on. As revealing as that Dan Feeney departure story is, the next update cuts straight to the heart of what makes this franchise absolutely unstoppable right now. Picture Will Reichard standing on that field with 62 yards of green turf between him and NFL immortality, knowing that one swing of his leg could shatter a franchise record that had stood since Greg Joseph's 61-yarder back in 2022. Will Reichard didn't just attempt this kick, he absolutely destroyed it, sending that ball sailing through the uprights with room to spare while US Bank Stadium erupted in the kind of chaos that gives you chills just thinking about it. This wasn't some lucky bounce or perfect weather condition fluke. This was pure precision and power from a rookie kicker who's already proving he belongs among the elite leg talents in the entire league. The 62-yard blast didn't just break the Vikings record, it tied for the 5th longest field goal in NFL history, putting Reichard's name alongside legends like Justin Tucker, Brandon Aubrey, and Matt Prater in the record books that most kickers can only dream about reaching. But here's what should have every Vikings fan absolutely losing their minds with excitement. This kid isn't just hitting one massive kick and calling it a career. He's been consistently drilling long-range attempts all season long, including a 51-yarder against Atlanta and a 59-yarder in Week 1 at Soldier Field. What does this mean for the Vikings' offensive strategy moving forward? It means Kevin O'Connell can be aggressive in situations where other coaches would punt or attempt risky 4th-down conversions. Because when you have a kicker who can legitimately connect from 60-plus yards, every drive into enemy territory becomes a potential scoring opportunity. The psychological impact on opposing defenses cannot be overstated. When they know the Vikings can score from anywhere past midfield, it changes how they defend every single snap, creating opportunities for big plays and keeping drives alive that would normally stall out. Think about the playoff implications of having this kind of weapon in your back pocket. Games are won and lost by 3 points all the time. And having a kicker who can bail you out from distances that seem impossible gives this team a massive advantage in close games when championships are on the line. Zach Taylor's comment about having a lot of pride to play for at halftime tells you everything about how demoralizing it is to watch a rookie kicker casually drill record-breaking field goals while your team is getting demolished. Because when you're dealing with that level of confidence and precision, you start to realize you're facing a team that simply doesn't have the same limitations as everyone else. And just when fans thought the record-breaking was over, here comes the next bombshell that's going to have every quarterback in the NFC North waking up in cold sweats for the rest of the season. Isaiah Rodgers just accomplished something so historic and devastating that NFL statisticians had to create entirely new categories just to properly document what they witnessed on that Minnesota turf. This cornerback didn't just have a good game or even a great game. He became the first player in Vikings franchise history to record 2 defensive touchdowns in a single game, but that achievement barely scratches the surface of the absolute carnage he unleashed on Cincinnati's offense. Rodgers' first touchdown came on an 87-yard interception return off Jake Browning that had US Bank Stadium shaking to its foundation, but his second score was pure artistry. He punched the ball out of Noah Fant's grip, scooped it up off the turf, and sprinted 66 yards to the house, while Bengals players could only watch in horror as their season started spiraling out of control. The NFL research department confirmed that Rodgers became the first player since 2018 to record both a pick-six and fumble recovery for a touchdown in the same game, and the first since 2017 to do it with both scores going for 50-plus yards, achievement so rare that most defensive backs never even come close to one of them in their entire careers. But wait, because the absolute madness doesn't stop there. Immediately after his fumble return touchdown, Rodgers stripped the ball away from Jamar Chase, setting up another Vikings score just 74 seconds later, and proving that when elite players enter that zone where everything they touch turns to gold, opposing offenses might as well pack up and go home. This performance from a player who signed a modest 2-year, $15 million contract in the offseason proves that Brian Flores' defensive system is turning good players into superstars and superstars into legends. Because when you have corners who can flip games in the blink of an eye while also shutting down elite receivers, you're dealing with a defensive coordinator who understands how to maximize talent in ways that other coaches can only dream about. The fact that Rodgers was coming off a gambling suspension and a backup role in Philadelphia makes this transformation even more remarkable, proving that when the right player finds the right system with the right coaching staff, magic can happen in ways that completely change the trajectory of a franchise. Stay with me, because what comes next will flip the script on everything you thought you knew about adversity and championship DNA. And it involves a quarterback situation that should have derailed this entire season, but instead proved why this Vikings organization is built different than everyone else. J.J. McCarthy's ankle injury during that strip sack against Atlanta was the kind of devastating blow that crushes young quarterbacks' confidence and destroys team chemistry, especially for a player who already missed his entire rookie season with a torn meniscus and was just starting to find his rhythm in his first year as a starter. The news that McCarthy could miss 2 to 4 weeks, according to Adam Schefter, should have sent panic through Viking Nation. Because losing your franchise quarterback when you're trying to establish an identity and build momentum is exactly the type of setback that turns promising seasons into disappointing what-ifs. McCarthy's early development had been inconsistent, but promising. With flashes of brilliance like that historic 3-touchdown fourth-quarter debut against Chicago, mixed with growing pains like the pick-six that showed he was still adjusting to NFL speed and defensive complexity. But here's where this story reveals the championship-level depth and preparation that separates elite organizations from pretenders. The Vikings didn't just have a backup plan, they had Carson Wentz ready to step in and manage games at a level that most teams can only dream about from their second-string quarterback. The fact that Minnesota could lose their starting quarterback and immediately pivot to a veteran who has made almost 100 NFL starts and reached MVP-level performance earlier in his career proves that this front office understands how to build rosters with the kind of depth that championship teams require. What makes this situation even more impressive is that Wentz isn't just a placeholder holding down the fort until McCarthy returns. He's a legitimate starting caliber quarterback who brings poise, experience, and arm talent that can actually elevate this offense in different ways than McCarthy might. The psychological impact of having this kind of quarterback depth cannot be overstated, because when the rest of your roster knows that losing the starter doesn't automatically doom the season, they play with the confidence and aggressiveness that championship teams display in crucial moments. This injury situation that should have been a disaster is instead becoming a showcase for organizational depth and preparation that has other NFC teams realizing they're dealing with a franchise that refuses to be derailed by the kind of adversity that destroys most seasons before they even get started. But trust me, the night isn't over, because the next chapter reveals exactly why smart front office decisions and roster construction philosophies separate championship organizations from teams that perpetually disappoint their fan bases. Dan Feeney's departure to Tampa Bay might seem like a minor move that doesn't deserve much attention, but dig deeper into this story and you'll discover a masterclass in roster management that proves the Vikings front office is operating on a completely different level than most NFL organizations. Feeney, a versatile interior lineman who spent the 2024 season with Minnesota primarily on special teams, just signed with the Buccaneers after Tampa Bay lost Cody Mauch for the entire season and Luke Goedeke for at least 4 games to devastating injuries that left their offensive line in shambles. The fact that the Vikings let Feeney walk, despite his ability to play center and both guard positions, reveals something crucial about their confidence in their current roster construction. They replaced their entire interior offensive line from last season with Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, and first-round pick Donovan Jackson, creating so much depth and talent that they could afford to let a reliable veteran walk without any concern about depth or versatility. This isn't just good roster management, it's the kind of aggressive improvement strategy that championship teams use to continuously upgrade their talent level rather than settling for mediocrity or clinging to familiar faces who aren't quite good enough. Tampa Bay's desperation to sign Feeney off Buffalo's practice squad after their injury crisis proves that he still has value in this league. But the Vikings' willingness to move on demonstrates that they've built something so strong and deep that they can afford to make difficult decisions based on pure talent evaluation, rather than sentiment or fear. The psychological advantage of knowing your organization won't hesitate to upgrade positions when better options become available creates a culture where players understand they need to perform at elite levels to keep their spots, which drives the kind of internal competition that makes entire rosters better. When you combine this philosophical approach with the fact that their current offensive line improvements allowed Carson Wentz to look comfortable and protected in his debut, you're seeing the fruits of a front office strategy that prioritizes continuous improvement over comfortable familiarity. The Vikings didn't just replace their offensive line. They upgraded it so significantly that losing additional depth pieces doesn't even register as a concern. And that level of roster confidence is exactly what separates teams that compete for championships from teams that make excuses about injuries and bad luck. And if this week felt like watching a franchise transform before your very eyes, what's coming next could be the moment when the rest of the NFL realizes they're dealing with a Minnesota team that has officially entered championship contention territory. The convergence of all these storylines, a record-breaking kicker who can score from anywhere on the field, a defensive superstar making NFL history while shutting down elite receivers, organizational depth that turns quarterback injuries into opportunities for veteran leadership, and front office decisions that prioritize continuous improvement over comfortable mediocrity, paints the picture of a franchise that has finally assembled all the pieces necessary for a championship run. When Carson Wentz takes the field against Pittsburgh and Dublin, he's not just filling in for an injured starter. He's proving that this Vikings organization has the kind of quarterback depth that championship teams possess when they make deep playoff runs. When Will Reichard lines up for his next long-range field goal attempt, opposing coaches will be forced to defend their entire half of the field because they know he can connect from distances that turn routine drives into automatic scoring opportunities. When Isaiah Rodgers continues his historic defensive rampage, every offensive coordinator in the NFC will have to game plan around a cornerback who can flip games with a single play while also locking down the league's most dangerous receivers. The psychological impact of this combination, elite special teams, historic defense, organizational depth, and championship-level preparation, should have every team in the NFC taking notice that something truly special is brewing in Minneapolis. Because when all these elements come together at the same time, you're not just looking at a good team having a good stretch. You're witnessing the formation of a championship contender that refuses to be stopped by the kind of adversity that derails most franchises. Think this transformation is impressive? Just wait until this team gets healthy, gets more comfortable with their systems, and starts peaking at exactly the right time. Because what we've seen so far is just the beginning of what could be the most dangerous Vikings team in decades. And the rest of the NFC is about to find out that underestimating this purple and gold juggernaut was the biggest mistake they could have possibly made.